Can any of you believe what some of these people are actually saying? They are trying to tell you with a straight face that this Super Bowl was boring. The audacity of some of these guys. You dive into the details here, we got the full 9 yards on display in this game. The brilliance in play calling, the chess match in the trenches. Some have a gripe with this game because they didn't think it was competitive. I know it wasn't necessarily a nail-biter by way of the scoreboard. But if you're calling it boring, ladies and gentlemen, this was far and away from it.
They did get a substitution in there.
And they bring a pressure as well. And Maye get a takedown as Witherspoon came under pressure. And Uchenna Nwosu is going the distance for a touchdown. It feels like Witherspoon's been coming on that blitz 10 times in this game.
And that he did. Let me give you all some context here real quick as to what specifically we were dealing with heading into this matchup. The best scoring defense through and through in all of football. Top 10 in the pass, number 1 in the rush. All capped off by what was, objectively speaking, one of the greatest performances you'll see in your entire life on the biggest stage. But there is a massive discrepancy with how Seattle tends to operate. So big that you could argue no other team in the league can duplicate it.
It's 3rd and 5. Maye's trying to step up. He lost the football. It's free and Seattle has recovered. Derick Hall knocked it out. The game's first turnover belongs to this incredibly talented Seattle defense.
There's about a handful of moments in this game that you can directly point to and say that was the key momentum shifter. This play to me kind of just encapsulates all of them. 2 factors probably stick out right off the bat to you if you're a quarterback here. First is the overloaded front, with pretty clear simulated pressure showing, with the linebacker lurking in between everything going on right in front of you. And soon to follow, like you might have saw, is a typical man coverage indicator. Diggs motions across, defender follows him in pursuit. But flip back over to the field shot, you very quickly realize that everything Drake thought he knew about the defensive look was wrong. It's a basic 4-man rush, and the coverage call's actually a Tampa 2 look with that walked-up linebacker Ernest Jones in a rapid drop off the line down the middle of the field. Now you rewind back about half a second or so to the snap of the football. On a critical 3rd down, this is a solid play design for the Patriots to convert. Pull up the coverage again one more time for comparison to the routes being ran. These 3 concepts specifically, and let me make it clear, there is major emphasis on the word should when I say this, should work together to stretch a coverage like this thin over the football. Albeit, the windows might be tight, you at least know that there's a possibility to keep the drive alive once you decipher this scheme as a quarterback. There's one big problem though. Turns out, you can't read a call if your ass is in the ground in 2 seconds.
Remember, Mike, this is a 4-man rush. One of the reasons that Drake Maye has had so much trouble finding somebody open down the field is they can't block the guys in a 4-man rush. And if you can't do that, you have almost no chance to win a game.
Flooding the secondary, and even more importantly, playing bully ball while being consistently outnumbered on the front line. You want a short and sweet answer, that's how Seattle won this game, and that is how they've won over the course of the entire 2025 season. And I don't think it's much of a secret how this bleeds into every other aspect of their defense. Because aside from never blitzing the quarterback, manhandling opposing linemen, maybe just making Drake Maye's life a living hell like his numbers through the first 3 quarters would tell you, the front line is actually only half of the foundation. The other side of the story is how specifically they tend to back it up in their coverage. 95% of this league does not run nickel personnel as much as Mike Macdonald does, which is just substituting one of your 3 typical linebackers out for a 5th defensive back on the field. Now, with Seattle operating almost solely out of this variant, it's pretty clear how this can give your team a clear-cut advantage being paired with such a productive rush in the pass game. But that still bears the question, what's the big deal with nickel? Well, it matters not just because of who it is, but it's how they typically use it.
And that's Nick Emmanwori, who's out there, had a bit of an ankle sprain during the course of the week. But Mike, he is such an important piece of this defense. He can play the linebacker position, and yet he's fast enough and big enough and strong enough to cover a very quick slot receiver going down on the wheel route.
The hybrid, the crown jewel, the Swiss Army knife that is Nick Emmanwori. The standout rookie you've consistently heard about all year. And also pretty clearly one of the top focal points all week in the game plan for New England. I mean, pretty much for 4 straight months, he has been nothing short of the do-it-all wild card on this side of the football. Look just 2 weeks prior in the championship game for an example. Blitz calls coming sporadically near and off the edge when both you and your quarterback least expect it. Now, we all know he's a pressure threat, but what if he's not being sent here? Well, that's one of the best wide receivers to ever play the sport lined up across from him. Now, keep in mind when you're watching this rep, man-to-man coverage and outside leverage up against an in-breaking route over the field. Stays stride for stride off the release, mirrors him on the break, and proceeds to just completely blanket the throwing window. Needless to say, the guy more than likely requires the bulk of your scouting efforts. His versatility, and of course right alongside that being his unpredictability, you can imagine by observing some of these clips how it would be an absolute nightmare to try to prepare for. Now let me explain to you why every single detail I just laid out to you is crucial. It all comes down to the margins. How you scheme him, predict him, how you try to work to eliminate him from the equation overall. With everything on the line, you knew for a fact that Seattle was going to try to catch this team off guard. But what absolutely nobody knew is that this man, he quite literally flipped the entire script on its head. But speaking of flipping, we got to give a shout out to today's sponsor in Arena Club. Now, some of you guys out there are probably pretty familiar with the trading card game, but what you might not know is the best and easiest way to do it. No boxes, no headaches, and best of all, no waiting with Arena Club at the tip of your fingers. I mean, it's pretty much everything that you could ask for. Digital packs starting at $25 and up with real graded cards inside, including grails that are worth 20 times the price of the pack. One click, instant card. So y'all know since we got this pack, we got to rip it as quick as we can. Zero time being wasted here. Another Ruby Football slab pack, and that is another solid pull in my opinion. A 98 Bowman Peyton Manning for the collection. And this exactly is what I mean by them making it easy. You can accept an immediate offer for the card if you'd like based on estimated value. Send it to your showroom. Even go old school and ship the physical cards directly to you. You cannot go wrong with Arena Club, guys. I've been loving it. I know y'all will too. And if you're watching this video, you can actually get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase if you go to arenaclub.com/digest and use code DIGEST at checkout. Link will be in the description. Again, code DIGEST at checkout. And a thank you to Arena Club for sponsoring this video. Now, what exactly do I mean when I say flipping the script? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the other anomaly in this secondary in Devon Witherspoon. The top-graded DB in football. Primarily known for his coverage and also being one of the best run defending backs in the entire sport. In no world did I think to myself following this game that we would be sitting here dissecting the polar opposite being the biggest difference on the field. Now, let me also make it clear. It's not the fact or idea that Devon Witherspoon can't generate pressure. It's just few and far in between when you actually see him given the opportunity. I mean, we're talking about barely over a single blitz per game over the course of the entire season. I don't need to be the one to tell you that situation and context absolutely matter when you're considering pulling the trigger like this. High leverage down, opening drive of the Super Bowl. And it's a 6-man pressure package with both nickel and dime blitzes off the edge. A cover zero call on the back end. But the icing on the cake in all of this, though, I mean, it's got to be the double DT dropout into hole zones on the front line. Zoom out and just look at this call from the bigger picture one more time for me. Everything on your screen, by pure definition, is psychotic. But now do me another favor and look up front at what that kind of chaos did to the protection. The dropouts work to leave both interior guards completely unassigned, and with no chip being incorporated from the tight end opposite, that one extra body in pass pros got a pretty unfair game of pick your poison to play.
They love to send him on blitzes off the edge, and right now it has been Seattle and their creativity on the defensive side that really saved that drive.
6 times he was sent at the quarterback this game. I mean, it just feels like a typo when you're sitting there staring at the comparison statistics. Multiple times you saw him used in, quite frankly, some of the most brilliant yet extremely risky pressure concepts you're ever going to see. Now, not every blitz call is going to live up to its expectations. But then again, you could also just flip this conversation 4 minutes later into this matchup. And yes, it is the exact same concept. You're not going insane if you were wondering, but it feels like every clip we jump to has got a common denominator. Now, the third down stop we highlighted on the very first drive of this game If you don't classify this as foreshadowing, then I don't know what is. Now, one of the biggest, if not the most important factor that allows Seattle to incorporate so many of these calculated gambles up front is actually their run defense. It's a 1st and 10 just past the 50, and I mean, they are as comfortable as can be, only parking 6 in the box on the most run-likely down imaginable. Flip over to the end zone view, the call looks like nothing more than a simple halfback draw right up the middle. Now watch Byron Murphy right off the snap. He's going to engage Jarrod Wilson initially, just to immediately cross-face to the center, and that ends up allowing Drake Thomas to absolutely blow up the B gap almost untouched. You want efficient, Seattle ended up hitting the running back behind the line of scrimmage on over half of their run designs over the course of this entire game. That's not just abnormal, that is a damn anomaly. And just like that, 1st and 10 has become 2nd and long. And right on cue, we have another one of those calculated gambles. If you're in the shoes of Mike Macdonald and it's not a drop back pass here, you're going to be surprised. A 3x1 trips look for New England with kind of an inside stack lined up over the field, and based solely on where the pressure's showing, you could probably guess it's another overloaded B-gap blitz. Crazy, right? Who would have thought? But important thing to note though with this call is that Witherspoon's off in coverage. Nick Emmanwori, per usual, is the one lurking the front line. The call Macdonald's got behind it looks somewhat like quarters palms. You could even just look at it as a split field variant that's backing up that blitz up front. Now first, let's initially assume that it is in fact palms on top of that pressure. 5 bodies rushing downhill at the quarterback, and 4 deep, 2 underneath in a hybrid style zone behind it. Now the reason I say hybrid, as we've discussed in prior videos, the boundary corners have specific rules in this coverage, and that is where all attention needs to be focused. For a quick reference, look up at the field side of the play for an example. If all 3 of these routes on his split of the call go inside or vertical, which you and I can both see right now that they do, absolutely nothing changes. The boundary corner will sink in coverage as was expected. But then there's also the question, what about the opposite when you've got a vertical that's paired with a flat on the same side of the field? Well, that's when these corners for Seattle take matters into their own hands. Bring up the full scale of this call one last time, just to be able to watch the beauty of all of this in action together. The overload blitz forces Drake Maye to panic, gives him no option but to immediately hit that quick out, and the coverage drowns the route and the entire concept from the jump.
2nd and 14. Free runner comes again. Out to Henderson. Stopped in the open field. Josh Jobe comes off the corner. They've got terrific corners to make plays like that when they bring pressure, and it's 3rd and long.
So, Mike, they bring pressure here, and they know what the hot is. So they are understanding completely what the offense of the Patriots are.
And this is what I mean when I say it also very well might have been a split field variant. Could have easily been something like a high-low call on Diggs, maybe cover 4 to the field. And I mean, of course, to nobody's surprise, another Seahawk defender making a top-tier tackle. Nonetheless, on the coverage, the point still stands. And 2nd and long just very quickly became 3rd and even longer. Now, bigger picture here from the eyes of Drake Maye, and especially when you shift over to the field view, this all looks eerily similar to what you just faced 30 seconds ago. Biggest reason I say that might have something to do with that overload pressure again to the weak side of their offensive line. On back-to-back downs, you'd think what you're about to see is predictable. But you thinking that is exactly what this team is trying to accomplish. Emmanwori goes edge, and Witherspoon, when it's least expected, goes inside to the opposite B-gap. And not even to mention, you're tying that curveball into a 3x2 hot blitz that's blanketing the back end. Think about every single concept you've seen so far in this video. Same idea, just different execution.
3rd and 15, pressure comes from deep that time, and it gets there in a sack. So the secondary's in the backfield multiple times. That's Witherspoon again.
That's as good a rush by Devon Witherspoon as you will see in the National Football League.
The more of these you watch, the more you realize how historically dominant this performance was on the biggest stage. Every one of those moments that we just sat there and picked apart in that stretch, you guys, that was the play sheet for Mike Macdonald through the first 12 minutes of game time. You could argue that what we just went through is an entire game's worth of exotic looks for some coaches around this league. But let me also remind you to not be fooled by what the bulk of these highlight plays will tell you. Devon Witherspoon was sent on pressure an absurd 6 times. But turns out, looks can be deceiving, because Seattle as a team only blitzed 7 times over the course of this entire game. Just imagine yourself in the shoes of a quarterback for a second, trying to process all this on the fly. 6 flat up on the line, and what looks like a basic 2-high shell? But as soon as you snap that football, it turns into a cover 3 dropout you didn't even know existed. I've already said it, I'll say it again. You look up psychotic in the dictionary, this is what you will see. But the point is the fact that they are generating pressure with absolutely no desire or need to consistently use additional pressure. And even when it is a completion, 9 times out of 10, the coverage is right there to can it.
The clock in the head of Drake Maye has been so sped up. I mean, it has been strategic, it has been physical, it has been overwhelming at times. He's throwing it before he has to, and they're missing opportunities.
And oh yeah, by the way, if you're keeping track at home, go ahead and mark that down as the second swim maneuver that this guy pulled off on a lineman. Unpredictability and controlled chaos. Undeniably the top 2 headliners of this man's blueprint. But it's not like it was just as simple as throwing the kitchen sink at Drake Maye, because it was also pretty clearly tied into limiting some of his strengths. Take the use of his legs for an example, which had easily been his #1 calling card up to this point in the postseason. Critical 3rd and 1, and their option to go cover 3 on the back end with a basic 4-man rush up front. But do me a favor, look at the specifics of the pass rush. They knew damn well going into this game how much Drake loved rolling to his right side out of the pocket, whether it be by design or just extending the play himself. Derick Hall's contain rush removes the rollout, and Lawrence's stunt hits the escape lane. He goes to shift his launch point ever so slightly in the opposite direction, and he just cannot make the throw because of it. What about those situations where, in fact, it is a rollout by design? Patriots have a cross-field flood concept off play action, and Mike's actually going on the riskier side with a 3x3 fire zone and a second level blitz. Now keep this in mind before the snap, Julian Love's in a downward rotation to his role in the coverage, which is also coincidentally where the bulk of the routes in this concept are targeting. Watch the middle hook defender Ernest Jones not only work to carry that shallow route across the field to his teammate in that rotation, but then they actually simultaneously turned because they knew the hook zone had been vacated. There's no 2 ways about it. This needs to be a completion for your offense to gain some momentum. But it wasn't. Boye Mafe at the bottom of the line works to set the edge, reads both the run fake and the rollout like a book, and when you're under pressure before you even have time to breathe, more times than not, it's hard to do anything with it. On rare occasion where the coverage lacks, the front line makes up for it. But what makes this defense so unique is that the story changes with every snap of the football. You could make that exact same case in point with roles completely reversed multiple times from start to finish in this game as well. It's a luxury that the majority of teams don't have. The ability to take those rare but extremely effective calculated gambles. If you want to go full circle, let's just take this all the way back to the dagger. Now, if you've made it this far in the video, you already know about the rush path that caused all this chaos. But what about the coverage? Well, based off post-snap movements, it at least looks like a quarter-style blitz with a major shift by Emmanwori low level to the field. This team, they don't take risks like this very often. But when they do, they win so quick that it doesn't even make a difference.
And they bring a pressure as well, and Maye gets a knockdown as Witherspoon came under pressure, and Uchenna Nwosu is going the distance for a touchdown.
Now, I know what some of you are going to say in the fact that we didn't mention the offense a single time in this video. They definitely deserve their flowers, and there's plenty that you could dive into on that side of the ball as well. But you and I both know that this defense stole the show. And this man, he has already joined elite company now because of it. But everything aside, I also want to hear what you guys have to say about it. So please, let me know what you think in the comments. I appreciate y'all more than anything, and I'll see you in the next one.